Nick Saban was on Hey Coach last night.
He turns. Was it just his birthday?
On Halloween.
Okay, yeah,
his birthday's
turned 70.
on Halloween.
He's turned 70.
Yeah, said something very interesting about discipline and doing the right thing that I want to get into in just a few minutes right here on Tony Kurre Radio. And it really is amazing what he said, and he got a little fired up. Eli Gold threw him a question about.
I like when he gets fired up because there's a latency, there's a delay.
Mm-hmm.
You see it. You see him getting fired up, and I love that about Nick.
He said, well, I'll just tell you, he said, it's amazing to me, and I think we're all sort of guilty of this to some degree, that people respond so much better when bad things happen than when good things happen. He said, I think this is, and I thought of you when I heard this, and I think that when good things happen a lot, people have the tendency to get complacent. He always talks about complacency. Complacency breeds a blatant disregard for doing things right. So you're not doing the little things right. You're not creating the right habits, and eventually that catches up with you. So when good things happen...
Let me tell you, Nick Saban is sounding increasingly like a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a coach, you got to be. But I just feel like there's more and more coming out of his mouth that as a psychologist, I absolutely resonate with. And I've seen that change over. So that's a, yeah.
He said, when you don't have humility... Mm-hmm. You don't have enough respect for other people regardless of who you're playing, but basically whoever you're playing, the opponent should be faceless. You should respect the technical parts of what they do and how you have to prepare to do it, but really your focus should be totally on your own performance in terms of how you play. You don't play down to someone's... Mm-hmm. That's why, when La Moreau comes calling, it doesn't matter who the hell it is. We do our job. And if we do our job right, it doesn't matter who we're playing, we're going to win football.
Well, that was
games.
Mike Leach talking about playing against Alabama.
Exactly. Prior to the Crimson Tide's 49-9 victory of the Bulldogs last Saturday, Alabama was coming off that first loss. And so a lot of people thought they were going to lay the wood to Mike Leach's teams, and they did. While Gold's question, Eli, didn't strike a nerve, Saban became animated as he began to use an example of cracking a window to a behind-the-scenes peek of how players are disciplined for such things as missing classes. Said, I actually got on the players today because Thursday's always academic day. We also make sure that everyone's eating all of their meals. So we do attendance at meals, and I know how many guys and how many meals they've missed and all that kind of stuff. So then you have a threshold of how many classes you can miss before you go in what we call the box. As soon as you get to the box, then you have penalties for every time you miss after that.
This is interesting. I want to have a comment about this. Go ahead.
Same thing with your meals. You miss too many meals, you go into the box, and once you're in the box, then every time you mess up again, there's a punishment. There's a penalty that you have to pay, and I'm not going to say what that is.
Ooh.
He said, to me, what I gave a lecture about today is everyone, once they get into the box, they don't miss any more classes. When something bad happens, it seems like you turn around. Once they get in the box, they don't miss any more meals. So my question is, why do we have to, from a morality standpoint, to do the right thing, there has to be some penalty involved to enhance us not to do the wrong thing?
Listen to him. He's getting all philosophical.
But we couldn't do the right thing when there's no penalty? You should be doing the right thing because the right thing and it benefits you. That kind of blows my mind.
I feel like that was some Socrates stuff.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, but I guess it's the same places in society. If you lie and there's no consequences for it, I guess you just keep lying. If you steal and there's no consequences for it, I guess you just keep stealing. I don't know, but you shouldn't do either one of those things to start with at this point.
I can close my eyes and see the points at which he was ramping up, like the last one.
Oh, yeah.
So I think... there's a couple places there. So there's a couple things. Yes, this is one of the reasons why, and people don't understand this is one of the reasons why we push the idea of learned optimism, of learning to recognize and look for the good things in your life. It's really important because what we tend to do is exactly what he said is we get very complacent. We get complacent with the blessings that we have, things that are good in our life, things that are gratitude. And what we're doing is we're either looking to avoid the bad things and or get ourselves out of the bad things. So most of our time is spent mentally focusing on how do I either avoid getting in trouble, or if I'm in trouble, how do I get out? Meanwhile, all the good things that are happening, they're just kind of coming and going. We're not processing it. So as a result, we spend less time looking to do good and more time looking to avoid bad, cheat bad, or get out of bad, right? And that's a problem. And that's kind of that's along the lines of what he's saying is, and that's why things like punishment or consequences work. What you hope is that it doesn't take repeated consequences. And this is where, now I'm getting too technical, but this is where it comes in. So what you hope is that if you do something wrong, your child does something wrong, you have the consequences. You're grounded, you're punished, we're removing something. And in order to make it right, you have them do a positive behavior, right? You apologize and make it right. But then what you want, and doesn't always happen, is then what you hope and what you want is now they're going, I should be looking for opportunities to do things right. Mm-hmm. And then it takes on. The problem we have is very often that part doesn't take on. It doesn't catch enough. And so we have to ramp up the consequence. We got to put them in the box.
Yep.
Here's the other thing. I work with a lot of athletes, and I'm just going to say this because didn't see this. These are 18 to 22 year olds. Uh-huh. Listen to how much structure they have to do the right thing.
Yep.
I mean, I understand that they're athletes, and I understand that, but you got to count how many meals they go to. How many times they go to class? I mean, that
kind of surprised me just because I don't know a football player that likes to miss meals.
No. But what I'm saying is, at that age, you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
At 18 years old or 19 years old, if you're playing on the number one football team in the country, that should be obvious to you. You shouldn't need a system. The Alabama football team should not need a system to keep account for that.
Yeah.
There should be little to no, particularly the meals. That's just, here's my fear. Again, I'm going to say this, and, Coach. Well,
I love him.
Well, here's what my fear is. Think about this. I have a client who's like this. You spend 4 years in that kind of structure.
Yeah.
Then you graduate. Mm-hmm. If you go to the NFL, I don't know. Would you say it gets looser at the pros?
Well, sure.
Okay. So now what happens? Nobody's accounting for how many meals you went to. No one counts whether you showed up or not.
Well, that's because you're old enough, you're mature enough.
Are you?
You're not, but I mean, you're now a professional.
Oh, okay.
And you're getting paid to do the right thing. But
I don't care about that.
But that's why you go to high school, college, and stuff to learn these habitual.
But that makes me concerned. Because now what you're not allowing. I mean, I know there's the consequences and stuff. It's almost like it's almost too much structure.
It seems to be working.
No, I'm not saying that it's not. That's why this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's not working for the football. It absolutely is working.
Yeah.
But then you get a kid who comes out and he's on his own. Let's just say it was like a Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Now here you are. You were structured. Now you're on your own.
Was he?
I don't know. But if you played, I don't know.
There's a lot of superstars that weren't structured. They didn't need to be structured because they balled every night. They didn't have the good because of their God-given talent and how good they were. The coaches let them go. They got to stay out a little later than everyone else.
Yeah, well, and Nick Saban's players, like John Wooden's players, I don't know. It just struck me as incredibly regimented, even within football.
So let me ask you this: are you a more of a positive reinforcement guy or a negative reinforcement guy?
You want equal of both. What you want to teach your kids and employees, because this is the thing. Adults, we're just older versions of kids. Yeah. It works the same way. What you want is this is the structure. You want super great opportunities to have positive reinforcement. You do these things right, and great things will happen for you. And as strong as the positive side is, the negative or the punishment has to be just as strong. So it's equal. So what you learn in the world is I have an opportunity to drive towards great consequences, or I have an opportunity to drive towards really bad consequences.
Yep.
What you don't want is a lack of balance. You want them equal because, so for example, we can take the two extremes. if it's only about if I do great things, I get candy and dollars and reinforcement and money and all that kind of stuff. But if I screw up, it's not that bad.
Yep.
You know, I get the slap on the wrist. Super bad. Because now basically you learn it's not that bad if you screw up. Flip it. And you get really bad punishment, but you don't really get any accolades for doing the right thing. Now you create what's called learned helplessness or apathy. After a while, people say, screw it, I don't care.
And it depends on what those good things are.
Well, good things are just...
But I know, see, I don't need to do positive reinforcement, at least with my 17-year-old, because when he does the right things, he gets the positive reinforcement himself. Like when he does his homework or cleans his room or takes the trash out, he feels good about himself. You can feel it. You sense that. And he gets a little righteous with everyone else. Why don't you clean your room up? Because I just cleaned my room. I'm like, shut up, dude. It took you 3 weeks to take out the recycling. I don't want to hear your shit. But I mean, so there's that's a beautiful thing when that positive reinforcement.
That's the maturity. But now listen. As much as we would love for that to be, then you go for work for a job. And you're working for that job, and you're working for it not just because you feel great that you're doing a great service.
Yeah.
You see, I mean, I say this all the time to people when I talk about this and changing behavior. How many of you, and I go to say, how many of you would go to your job every day and do your job every day if nothing hit your bank account weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly?
Yeah.
Most of us wouldn't. Most of us wouldn't.
No.
I know you love what you do. Yeah. I know you love what you are incredibly passionate. I've been amazed in working with you in the last 4 years. You treat this as if I imagine you treating it when you're 22 years old. You get happy, you do your little prep thing, and you move the buttons around, and you can see it in you. You're in your happy place.
Yeah.
But you know as well as I know that a part of having to do this has to be related to a financial reinforcement.
Sure. Yeah, unless I was financially well off and just doing this for fun, which a lot of people do podcasts and stuff like that for. But eventually, this is one of those things where it's something that's fun, but it's also something that provides for my family, and so it's got to work, and that's where the challenges come in. Because you know that when you're on the air and we're talking to 35, 40,000 people as opposed to 100,000 people are standing in front of me, it's the same thing as a rock band. Mm-hmm. Cheap Trick played live at Budokan in front of 63,000 fans. They didn't know how many were going to show up. The fans went crazy. And I was talking to Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander about it. What was it like? Because they had no clue how big they were in Japan, and they were going crazy for this band. They were like showing up going, okay, this is weird. And I said, what was it like? Did your heads get big? He said, oh, no. Robin said, oh, no, because 2 nights later, we were playing the Iowa State Fair, and there were 6 people there. It was pouring down rain. We were flipping Cheap Trick. We just played in front of 60,000 fans, Jeez. And now we're playing. He said, I remember a greased pig running right below the stage. There were cows. It stunk like hell. There were rides and everything. And I'm like, what the hell? He said, no, there's always been moments of humility in our lives where it's been like this, and normally you don't get to a point where you're here forever, I mean, it ebbs and flows, and again, that was something that they agreed to do before the Budokan thing. It happened, and that certainly took them to greener pastures. But listen, I think Nick Saban, I think is the most amazing coach. I don't know if there'll ever be a coach to that extent. And when he talks about humility, and I know there's been a million books written about him and stuff.
Has he written? He has not written a book yet, has he?
I don't think so. Not an autobiographical read.
Has he done?
Lars Anderson, I'm sure, would love to have that.
Has he done? I know he does speaking. I've seen him do like leadership conferences. Right? He's done. Yeah. Does he do that?
He does. I mean, he'll do the quarterback club, and stuff like that. But
he's going to need to come out with, again, I liken him, we've talked about it, a bunch of coaches, this is my background. I liken him to a John Wooden in that he has He's got things. He's got processes, right?
Yep.
He's got a system. I mean, one of the pyramid of success that John Wooden came out with, that he used for basketball, and he was also a teacher. That took on a life of its own well after he was playing. I see Nick Saban doing that. I see the book, The Saban Way, how to be. I should call him the Saban Way, how to be successful in football, business, and life. Right. And he's going to talk about his methods and the habits and all these kinds of things. He has got an intricate way. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, both about coaches in general, particularly at this college level, you've got these elite athletes who are kids as well. Right? They're not 30 years old. They don't have the maturity, but they've got this skill that's just insane. And so in many ways, you have such a challenge because you have the immaturity of a child, but the skill of somebody that, that the world wants. And so you have to create systems that keep things in check. To be honest with you, because it's not a paycheck, although, look, we see it at the pro level. I'm not going to go Ben Sizzle, but we see it at the pro level. Even when you throw tons of money, that maturity piece, not just age, but that maturity piece is tested even more. Because now it gets easier on the one hand, and on the other hand, you can screw it up. I'm obsessed with I'm obsessed with the Kyrie thing. I'm obsessed with the Ben Simmons thing. I'm obsessed with how the Ben Simmons thing is causing it's becoming an issue for the family, if you will. Carl Anthony Towns, another kid who lost 12 members of his family to COVID. Like, the things that we see that are happening with these elite athletes, you have to ask yourself, what is the structure around them, whether it's their family or their coach or the organization? Because we know that people flounder when they don't have structure around them. For some people, it's religion.
Well, and I think it's easy to look at the Kyries and the Bens and the Towns because they're millionaires. They're playing a sport we love. We want to see them play. But what you have to realize is, let's take it to the McDonald's manager or even the Washington State coach. There's millions of people, unfortunately, that aren't wealthy. We look at it from I can't believe you were willing to give up a $3 million a year job because you don't want to get the vaccination. Well, there's a lot of people willing to give up a $25,000 job when they don't have the money or wherewithal to feed their families.
Yes.
So, but it's easier to look at those people going, you're willing to give away that kind of jack because, but here's the part that's interesting to me. If you're going to dig in and you really believe in something, money doesn't matter.
No, I absolutely agree.
Money doesn't matter. Teammates don't matter.
Absolutely.
Cities don't matter. It doesn't matter. The Ben Simmons thing is a totally different thing because he doesn't want to be in Philadelphia. I don't know. I think you were onto something about the depression thing. I'm not so sure.
No. I said or I said this to you this morning.
Yeah.
He
just wants to get the hell out of Philadelphia.
And it is and
they will send him out.
And it is an immature way of going about it, which I'm not surprised for a 25-year-old.
Yeah, and did you see what they did last night? I guess they put him on IR or whatever because of his back.
Yeah.
They were going to start him tonight in Philadelphia. Okay. You don't want to be here? Well, you're getting paid, and you're playing tonight. And those Philadelphia fans would have killed him.
Yes.
He would need extra security. I mean, this is the same city that booed Santa Claus. He would need extra security to get the hell out of that arena tonight if he plays. And he better ball. He better play his ass off.
I think he is
but I think they're figuring out a way to make sure they keep him on the bench or keep him in the locker room so they don't have to deal with a distraction.
Well, and I think he is forget the depression and anxiety. Let's just say I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a kid who is in such a bad place. When I say bad place, let's just say he didn't want to be in Philadelphia. And again, I think it's interesting. He didn't want to be in Philadelphia, maybe because of the city, because of the fans. But put on top of that, his downward play.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think he was throwing games. I don't think he was missing free throws on purpose. And so you get to this place, just call it, you're in a funk. You're in a funk. I don't like this. I don't want to be here. It's not fun. I'm listening to all the criticism. And then on top of it, before we had this thing at the end of last season, I can't play.
Yeah.
Or not, I can't play well.
Yeah.
You swirl that stuff around, dude, that will bring anybody down, particularly when you're 25 years old and you don't have the maturity to figure out how to pull out of that in a socially appropriate way. Yeah. Meanwhile, everybody's watching you. You and I have both employed people in their 20s. Mm-hmm. I have seen this happen a gazillion times. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to not have the maturity to know how to state your preferences, how to suck it up if you need to, how to address conflict, like real conflict, like I'm really unhappy here and I want... At 25-year-olds, not all 25-year-olds know how to do that. I think this is what we're seeing with Ben Simmons. Throw the last piece on here. I'll throw the last piece on here. They said he put his house up for sale. I don't know about you. When I was 20, first of all, when I was 25, I was in graduate school, so I rented a house. The fact that you're at 25 and you know what a mortgage is and you're selling your house, like, for a lot of 25-year-olds, that's beyond them. I don't know that Ben Simmons is that sophisticated on any of it. So it's yet another thing that he's got to try to figure out. I don't mean the logistics of doing a mortgage, but it's just selling your house. Yeah. I mean, this is a kid who I hope he's not depressed. I hope he doesn't have an anxiety disorder. I hope there's nothing more serious than that. This is a kid who needs a shrink.